Okay, that was exhausting. Do you want to hear the backseat now? Yes, please. Okay, first of all, never use fire blast like 10 seconds before combustion. If you have less than 2 fire blasts when you combust, you know you did something wrong. Out of rotation, don't spam out your flames and blasts. Fireball, when you crit, you hit the builder. Wait, so what you mean is that I should mostly just be using my fire blast and phoenix flames inside combustion, and then when I'm not in combustion, I just like spam my fireball over and over. And then when I have the crit, then I use my fire blast or phoenix flames, and then I use my spender. Also, when you're using shifting power, you can dump your fire blast mid shifting power to build hot streak. They will overcap. Ooh, I can't do that, can I? I didn't think about using that, but yeah, now that you say it, it's off GCD.
Target
Okay,
change.
good here.
Dispel.
Okay, we spam some fireballs, because I have combustion a bit.
Charging. Move.
Nice, I have my combustion and no mobs are alive. That's it for my damage. Oh, I fucking hate this spec with all my fucking being and soul. Jesus Christ, this is insufferable. How do people play this shit like willingly? Cast fireball, cast fireball.
Target
Okay, cast some
change.
more.
Charging.
I should have done
Target change.
the other.
Move.
I know, fuck it. Yeah, almost die. I don't have damage for this shit. I don't have buttons! Help me, please! I don't have buttons! Guys, kill the boss. I stall them. I'm gonna be a stall bot. You guys, listen. You guys do realize that I'm like fucking 30 eye level below all these people, right? I am aware that I'm really bad at the spec. I'm just saying, okay? Okay, fireball. You gotta stack some of these up before combustion. Okay, one more. Go.
Pushback incoming.
Also, this boss doesn't count because these guys are some disgusting patters. I don't have buttons! Help me, please! I don't have buttons! Guys, kill the boss. I stall them. I'm gonna be a stall bot. You gotta stack some of these up before combustion. Okay, one more. Go. Let me out of here. Let me out of here, please. Let me out of here. I'm willing to do one more, by the way. Cleft. Ew. Oh, yo! I didn't lower it. I forgot to lower it. It was a 9. I mind control myself and the group. How to double Pyroblast. Begin with a heating up in hand while casting Scorch, Pyroblast, or Fireball. Fireblast during this cast to generate Hot Streak. Okay, bro. Nah. Okay, Scorch, Combustion, Fire Blast, then you cast Pyro, and then you hard cast a Pyroblast. This is an bro. This shit is breaking my brain. I feel retarded right now. It's a literally. Listen, this is hard. This shit is hard. Actually, let's try it here. Scorch, Combustion, Fire Blast, Spam Pyro. I didn't do it, did I? One fire blast, then you put another fire blast because it generated. Oh, I'm gonna lose it. Okay, wait. Let me like mentally reset. Listen. Nah. Cause you scorch. Cause you already have it heating up, right? But I need to fire blast. I need to fire blast before the scorch finishes, and then Okay. Listen. I think I understand what you're saying. I don't know how to explain it. I think I understand the concept though. Okay. This.
Watch your step.
No, I fucked it up. Okay, it's over. Where's my mouse? GG. I think I understood it already. That's the thing. Okay, look. Oh, you saw that shit! Did you see that?
Target change.
I know how to do it now. No, I get it. You ever seen Jujutsu Kaisen? I'm like Mahoraga. I can adapt. Show me that shit once. Explain it to me. I know it. Okay. Okay, these guys are just padding. Like, turbo fucking padding. Let's look at the boss damage. 100 mil. Ay. I got outdone by the tank again. Okay, try again. Watch. I have to have this. Boom! Oh, we're dead though. Not... That was kind of cracked, no? That was beautiful. You guys are like mentally ill. I don't know, like I literally pinged that shit. I don't know what you want me to do.
Overcome this trial.
Don't go on that fucking... It's, you know, you're gonna have to heal through that shit, like... I don't think I did that. That was a fail. Bit of a fail.
Run out. Interrupt. Run.
Oh wait, you can skip the mechanic? Holy fuck, it's timed. Oh, and I get a wax that I don't need. Nice job, thank you. I did this exact same amount of damage as I have in a +9 and also in a +6, which probably indicates that I haven't improved at all. Double pyro is also double flame strike. Just replace pyro with flame strike. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll try it. Ah, okay, goons. Okay. Today we finish up the fire mage, hopefully. We're gonna try to get to KSM that we didn't get to last time, okay? By the way, fellas, we learned some tech last time. We learned what double pyroing and double flame striking is. And what else did we learn? I'm not really sure. Oh yeah, you don't really want to press your fire blast before combustion. That's like another big thing. And aside from that, oh yeah, also you can use your fire blast during shifting power. That's like I think like the biggest 3 takeaways that we had last stream. He didn't touch those guys. I can't aggro anything.
Interrupt.
That was optimal. Actually optimal. I'll take it. You know, on Tuesday I've been doing like below tank damage on fucking Bloodlust packs, so we're gonna be happy today, okay? No bitching about performance. Okay. This time I remember. No blasting. No blast yet. Last one?
Grandpa.
And I get a Bloodlust. Holy fuck. More power. More power.
Knocking back.
Amazing altar, thank you, Seth, thank you. I'm glad you noticed. Why no blasting? Because the boss has an intermission after you funnel the bombs into him when he takes more damage, which I literally didn't know about up until like 2 weeks ago, and I've been playing this dungeon for 3 months now. Holy fuck.
Corsi_Slayer raided with 23 views.
Oh my god. Thank you very much, Kusi. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the stream. Nice new thing for me, too. I had no idea about that, Mayo. I had zero idea that the intermission on this boss was even a thing. And I always wondered why I was doing 0 damage on the boss in my elemental. Just like, come on, bro. Go on. Ay. We're doing boss. That's it. Live this. This is easy. It's easy. Okay, I defensive this. We blast. I failed my combustion. It's over. We're done. More barriers. This guy's dead, right? Yeah. God! Holy fuck! No way. I'm 8 rating off. 5 seconds on the timer though. Thank you. Thank you very much. Back upgrade. Beautiful. Do we have suits? Maybe. Our Mr. Monk has... Oh, what the fuck is going on? Oh no.
Breath incoming. AOE incoming.
Yeah, this is not gonna be good at all.
Dispel.
It's just like, I don't know what the fuck that pull is. Hold your party, yeah, my guy. Just chill. We can chill and we'll be fine. We can still do it. These guys are pumpers. Like, the group is good. The tank just thought that we were like insane fucking 680. You just got confused. These guys, they have so much damage. They're gonna blow the key up. I get thrown down. Okay. At least I didn't press my combustion. Just some boss. I should probably get a weaker for my combustion timer, just so I know when to prepare for the whatever the spamming parts at the end. Oh hell nah! This guy cannot be serious.
Frontal. Frontal.
Okay, this.
Frontal. Frontal. Frontal.
How did you survive as a baby if you're lactose intolerant? That's what I'm saying. Blasting.
Frontal.
Didn't see that. There you go. Easily timed. That is it, isn't it? Oh, beautiful. It disappeared. That is it. That is the Keystone Master for this guy. And I'm not really free because we need to get KSH by next week because we're kind of running through these characters. Hello, Gooners. This is Post-Production Agent speaking. So yeah, if you're on the Discord or if you've seen the YouTube post I made, we're gonna try to change up the format a little bit. The reason for this is that I feel like the challenge videos have gotten really stale lately. Not just for me, but also maybe for you guys. Every video has this like specific telegraphed Warcraft formula and I want to try something new. It also saves a bunch of time for me because recording these can take a while, and also I really enjoy editing these stream VOD videos. So yeah guys, let me know if you enjoyed it in the comments, and go check out my YouTube members. Quick little self-plug. If you want some special perks such as having a badge next to your name, getting to some classic emojis in the comment sections, or becoming a VIP on Discord, getting to see some early news about the content, and voting on important polls, you know, having a say on what happens on the channel, then please check it out, and see you guys next time. Bye bye.
My spear aims true.
Overcome this
Illuminati, also known as Blair, is a well-known commentary YouTuber with just under 1.2 million subscribers. She was originally particularly known for her anti-MLM style content, but as time progressed, Blair went on to become particularly known for her commentary surrounding current affairs on the internet, involving social media trends, influencers, and controversies. And it's actually all led to Blair gaining a subscriber base of 1.7 million subscribers. And no, that is not a mistake on my script's part. Blair at one point of time did have 1.7 million subscribers, but she currently sits at 1.2 million subscribers. So it of course begs the question of how does one individual lose 500,000 subscribers? Well my friends, in today's video we will be answering that question by telling the entire story of Illuminati. And yes, this is a topic that I have covered extensively, but seeing as this story is officially now wrapped up and concluded, I thought it would be appropriate to tell the entire story surrounding the supposed worst commentary YouTuber in YouTube history in a concise manner where we go through every single chapter of this person's downfall and explaining how we got to where we are in 2025. But before we get into all of that and this very long YouTube video, I just want to talk to you about today's sponsor.
What's up, gays and gamers? We were supposed to have a sponsor. Now we don't. So today's sponsor is Frazier. He is trapped abroad and needs to get home. Someone save him!
So yes, my friends, welcome to the beginning of this story, and that is April of 2023. Now around this time, Illuminati was on the up. She was gaining hundreds of thousands of views per video and gaining thousands and thousands of subscribers every single day. It was very obvious that things were going well for her. And in terms of the community reception, Blair was very well respected. Every single video she posted got a high amount of praise and tens of thousands of likes, and just in general, Illuminati was one of the larger, more respected commentary channels in the space. Illuminati, or Blair, was a very successful person, and I'm not going to lie to you, back in the day when Illuminati was at her peak, I respected her content. I genuinely used to think, this is impressive. She puts out a large amount of content very quickly, and you know, it was just something to look up to and kind of be inspired by. Because something that a lot of YouTube channels do struggle with is a consistent upload schedule, but this problem was not on the Illuminati channel. As you could see, her audience was fed every single week, with multiple videos coming out that were very well constructed with fairly decent editing and good scripting overall, and honestly, it just seemed that this was a well-rounded commentary channel which was posting consistently and doing very well in the YouTube algorithm. And because of all of this, naturally Blair was becoming very successful on the social front, but also on the financial front, and I think this really got to a point of where Blair was feeling pretty untouchable based on the fact that everyone in the community respected her. They came to her channel to hear her opinion on certain current affairs and current topics going around in the space, and just in general, a lot of people looked up to Blair, and I think she thought at this point of time, around 2020, she could get away with anything. And that's only proven when you go back to 2019, where Blair did actually face some level of controversy, being dubbed as a video stealer and false flagger, but that controversy was met with a wave of adoring fans disliking the video and dubbing the story as a load of lies and another YouTuber just trying to get some clout. So yeah, because of situations like that where Blair seemingly was escaping all forms of criticism, there was no dialogue that needed to be had because people respected her name, Illuminati could surely do no wrong, so they just assumed that any bad word out there was of course someone clout chasing, and of course that led to what I mentioned earlier of Blair feeling untouchable. Until April the 20th, 2023. Because this date is the beginning of the downfall of Illuminati. Because on that particular date, Illuminati made a tweet which she will probably regret for the rest of her life, where she accused content creator Legal Eagle of some pretty interesting things, where she stated, "Not to Legal Eagle's editors broaching my editors to take my video style, and when they didn't give up the information, they literally copied it. And by the way, I have the messages from my editors and I found an email from them too. Just changed the color from purple to blue, huh? Interesting." Now, of course, this is a pretty significant allegation to make against any YouTuber, but in particular, when it comes to Legal Eagle, this is even more significant given the fact that Legal Eagle is a lawyer whose content is completely centered around the law and legal situations on social media, but also in the real world. To accuse a lawyer, or at least a lawyer's team, of some form of plagiarism was seen as a, well, but a pretty ballsy thing to do. Blair then followed up that tweet stating, "So I went through my emails and found this just outright saying, yeah, I'm gonna do this, but if you could make it easier for me, I'd appreciate it." And attached is an email supposedly from an editor stating, "Hey Blair, I work as an editor for Legal Eagle, and I was wondering if there was some effect plugin you guys used for things like the intro to the first NFL video. Well, the lighter colors appear to stick out in 3D. We could recreate it, but we figured that there was probably a faster method that you guys were using. Here's the video I'm talking about just so you know what I mean. Thanks, Danny." And then Blair followed this up stating, "Also went to my Discord server to try and cop the style," and she attaches yet again another screenshot where the same Danny is clearly trying to work out how the editing team on Blair's side performed a certain specific editing effect. And then she attached a side-by-side comparison, and I guess this was some form of way to expose the editor for plagiarism, because according to Blair, this is seemingly a very significant case of plagiarism where someone has outright, I guess, stolen her style. And then Blair ended the thread by stating, "And to be honest, I wouldn't have believed any of this was trying to replicate my videos if not for the email and Discord stuff that was done preemptive to their video coming out. Like, talk about, can I copy your homework? Yeah, but just make it a little bit different." Now, immediately, this created a lot of controversy, and overall, the community sentiment immediately was, this is not a good look on Blair. Leon Lush, another well-known content creator, pointed out a very obvious fact of both examples. All I'm seeing is some incredibly common editing styles / techniques that have been used in thousands of videos. Not sure why you're trying to make this a thing. Honestly, example B made me laugh. If you've ever watched a documentary in your life, you've seen this exact edit, and you're using it as an example of someone copying you. And yeah, what Leon's saying here is absolutely true, because as you can see in this screenshot that Blair provided to kind of give evidence that this person was trying to copy her work, as you can see, there is a 3D effect on the text in Blair's video, and I guess Blair is trying to suggest that this is actually her editing style, and if anyone ever dares try to copy it or emulate it, then that is outright plagiarism. But of course, the problem is, like Leon pointed out, this type of editing style is very common. If you've watched literally any video essay out there ever, you've most likely seen a 3D effect of where someone is just trying to make the edit look cool, look different, look a little bit better, or just a little bit more professional. What's being shown here really isn't anything special, and as Leon pointed out, it's a very, very common editing method. Even in the original email of Danny trying to contact Blair, he actually states that he could recreate this, but he was simply just trying to find a faster method to do this. And the community sentiment surrounding this at the time was pretty much that, yeah, Danny was just trying to make his life easier. He wasn't trying to commit plagiarism, he wasn't trying to copy somebody's work, he was just speaking to a peer in the same space as him, which happens quite a lot. I have spoken to other people about a certain editing style that they used, and I would like to replicate in my video. It's not plagiarism, it's just helping people in the same space that you're in. And it's clear that Legal Eagle did not take to these allegations lightly after he responded to this in a tweet stating, "Hey, Illuminati, I think this is a big understanding. Perhaps great minds think alike. No one in my team is trying to copy you. Without an exhaustive review of your channel, I believe we used these two styles before your channel did. we've used them for 3 to 4 years. Plus the two styles, a pseudo paper rip and a highlight, are extremely common on YouTube. The editor you're talking about didn't even design either of those two elements, and again, we've used them for 3 to 4 years at this point. Danny is a great and thorough editor, and when he reached out via email, he was just hoping to find out what plugin your team used on a particular video, which is a very common practice among editors. He was not looking to copy anyone's style. Danny is also a freelancer who makes his own videos. In the Discord, the video he referenced was about being inspired by your subject matter, not your style. He's a fan of yours. The video he was referencing was a video of his own, and not even a Legal Eagle video. Here's the end of the Discord chat that Danny provided to me. He was trying to edit a video of his own using DaVinci Resolve. He was just looking for some technical help, and then thanked everyone anyway, and then a screenshot is attached to where Danny clearly writes, and about talking to the editing team, I've emailed in the past but got no response, so I figured I'd try here. Danny then gets a response stating, this really isn't the place for that, this was just to ask questions about the server, as the mod team really isn't involved in the editing. The editing team are busy people, and Danny then responds with, well thanks for the help. And then Legal Eagle follows this up with 3 more tweets stating, YouTube is great because it's collaborative and the rising tide raises all ships. My team and I always try to provide original, high quality and informative content. We try to help others when they ask for it. There aren't really any trade secrets around here. I didn't know that Danny reached out to you, but I don't fault him for doing so. If anything, I think everyone on this platform should be more open in sharing. Anyway, if you feel any differently or want to hash it out, my DMs are open. Now after Legal Eagle came out with this tweet, most people out there approached this with a lot of goodwill. They saw what Legal Eagle was doing here, and they respected it quite a lot. It was very clear that the man wasn't looking for drama, he wasn't looking for a public battle with another content creator, he was just trying to resolve an issue that had been made public by another content creator in a false accusation. And immediately this brought criticism onto Blair because people were stating if she really cared about any of these plagiarism issues, she could have just directly contacted Legal Eagle. They were both two big content creators who could have easily got into contact with each other, but instead, Blair chose to attack him publicly. And to most of the community out there, this has now gone from a plagiarism issue to a clear example of someone trying to take out their competition. Because whilst Legal Eagle does make videos about law, his videos and Illuminati's videos are somewhat in the same category, and people believed what Illuminati was doing here was simply trying to remove the competition so her channel can grow even more. Now of course to this day there is no evidence to prove that, but just based on this random attack on Legal Eagle, a lot of things really weren't connecting and making any sense. But immediately after this, people were of course angry, mocking Blair, criticizing Blair, and just in general, for the first time ever for Blair, things were not looking good. It was very clear at that time, and in 2025, Blair had made a complete lapse in her judgment. I think she was at a point where her ego was at a sky high, where it really never reached that level again. She was getting a lot of views, a lot of subscribers, a lot of money was coming in, she had a large team behind her, and she had gotten away with drama in the past without even being questioned, so this was a point of where Illuminati really did seem to think she could get away with anything. So I think this was almost a next step in her plan, coming after other larger content creators in order, in my opinion and in other people's opinion, to take out the competition. But what's interesting about this story is it is a complete representation of if you've buried your past, if you've tried to escape from mistreating so many people and everyone around you, eventually, one seemingly small bit of drama or one small singular action can alter the trajectory, I can't speak English, can alter the trajectory of your entire career. And this absolutely did that. This created a snowball effect that Blair will most likely regret for the rest of her life. Because things only went from bad to worse when another major YouTuber got involved called HBomberGuy, who on April the 21st tweeted, "Just to clarify, one of Legal Eagle's editors asked one of your editors what plugin they used for a personal video they're working on for their own channel. I take plagiarism really seriously, so I'm interested in the explanation of what exactly is wrong here." And then he followed it up with a more damning tweet which states, "Personally, Illuminati, I would define plagiarism as something a bit more specific. For example, copying someone else's documentary directly into your script. And this is where things immediately became incredibly ironic, and Blair was immediately dubbed as a hypocrite, because in the video that he attached to those tweets, it shows that if anyone's the plagiarite in this situation, it was Blair.
Professor Hugh Fudenberg.
Professor Fudenberg has long been controversial.
A man named Hugh Fudenberg, a former immunologist who has been long controversial.
In 1989, he was caught up in a bizarre lawsuit involving the Food and Drug Administration, which told him he had to stop injecting his autistic child patients with blood products.
In 1989, he was caught up in a bizarre lawsuit with the Food and Drug Administration, which told him he had to stop injecting his autistic patients with blood products.
Then in 1995, he was suspended from practicing medicine and made to pay a $10,000 fine for his misuse and misprescribing of controlled drugs.
Then in 1995, he was suspended from practicing medicine and made to pay a $10,000 fine for his misuse of prescribing controlled drugs.
Yes, after everything, the drama, the allegations of plagiarism towards Legal Eagle, it turned out that the only person committing what seemed to be plagiarism was Illuminati herself. And immediately, people started to question Illuminati, as her hypocrisy was really starting to be displayed here. Why would she call somebody out for something that she herself had committed, and was, you know, everything what it seemed behind the scenes with this content creator? If they were willing to lie about these things so blatantly and also be a hypocrite, what else could they have possibly done? And because of this supposed plagiarism, this led to people questioning other elements of her channel. For example, somebody here was questioning the upload schedule that I complimented earlier, where this person states, I used to watch their stuff, but I found it odd how she would be able to churn out so many video essays at such a regular pace. I had no proof that anything malicious was going on, but the vibes were just off, you know? Glad it wasn't just all my imagination. Now, of course, up until this point, there was no real direct evidence that Blair was plagiarizing in every single video, but of course, when you're going to accuse somebody of plagiarism and you yourself get caught out at least once for plagiarism, and also there is no proof that that other person you've accused plagiarizing actually plagiarized, it of course is going to cause a lot of doubt. It's going to cause a lot of questions, and people are going to start to look into your history and to see if you yourself are guilty of anything bad. And with that came more and more backlash, and mainly just people demanding that Blair apologizes for this situation. But the problem is no apology was going to prevent the events that were now about to happen in Blair's life, because she had created a snowball effect. Everything that she had done behind the scenes that nobody knew about was boiling up, and one bad public action led to the next events. As on the 23rd of April 2023, former friend of Blair and business collaborator The Click, another YouTuber, called out Blair for a multitude of things in a 16-tweet thread. Hey a peep, I have seen the recent drama regarding Illuminati, and I would like to clarify, I am not affiliated with her and haven't been for over 2 years. I left her and her collaborative group Sad Milk due to similar behaviour as seen in the recent events. And now, before we go any further, this is when I need to give you a bit of a lore dump on Illuminati and her friends. So allow me to introduce you to Sad Milk, which was once a popular group channel which content creators such as Illuminati, Ozmedia, Damian Lee, Wonderstruck Guy, The Click, and many others collaborated on Reddit videos, and just in general a bunch of fun things that a lot of people out there enjoyed around the period of 2019 and 2020. And the channel was very successful, but one day mysteriously ended out of nowhere. And this is what I mean by things boiling up behind the scenes and one action then creating that boiling effect to just explode and go everywhere. This had now happened because things were clearly far worse than we originally thought. Because in the second tweet, The Click states he left Sad Milk due to Blair lashing out at friends and fans, paranoia, and generally poor anger management, to name a few. Eventually, I believe pretty much the whole group left her. The last meeting I ever had with her, she spent half an hour screaming at me for an array of random things, calling me a bad friend, lazy, and a bunch of random accusations that didn't really have anything to do with me. He quotes Blair stating, "There is no way you can have this resume you claim and be this stupid," and so on. no one ever even raised their voice back at her. I left along with several other members, half the group at the same time. She spent the next month spreading lies and half-truths about us on the Sad Milk Reddit page and vague posts on Twitter. I still have all the screenshots. She would turn friends against you or specifically team up with people she knew that didn't like you, so she had allies against you. Rallying mainly banned problematic community members known to be liars and conflict seekers. When people started questioning that maybe she was the reason everyone left, there was a very convenient updigging of 11 to 14-year-old videos of me. Stuff that I made back when I started my channel in 2009 when I was a teenager. And as you can probably guess, some of the jokes from that time age like milk. Ironically, it's called Sad Milk. I publicly owned up to my past mistakes and apologized, doing my best to be transparent and honest about my past. She would harp on it, ignoring the fact that it had already been addressed, trying to direct as much attention to it as possible, publicly stating it was a bad apology, along with vague posting about it in comments on the collaboration channel. Maybe in an attempt to get people to assume I had been kicked out for poor behavior, rather than leave because of her own behavior. She also liked to pull what I can only describe as petty acts of revenge. For example, some people left comments on the collaboration channel saying, "Good that the clique left," and they'd obviously get ratioed hard, as people were there for the curators. She would then go and manually delete the ratio comments, but leave the original hate comments. She then tried to gain control of my Discord when it was surpassed by hers in size, by tossing around accusations at staff and trying to get rid of my team and replacing it with hers, giving me the ultimatum to fire my entire senior team or be publicly fired from Sad Milk myself. I was still a YouTube freshie at the time, and she was quite intimidating, claiming connections and clout, reputation and powerful friends, so everyone stayed mostly silent and had to constantly look over our shoulders for the next year. None of us even mentioning the whole thing. We were worried about talking in our own Discords, as it had become apparent she had spies within our moderation ranks. We were hoping we wouldn't have our reputation completely destroyed for simply walking away. This is just a brief summary of events. It's sad to see she hasn't changed. Now yes, obviously, this at the time painted a completely new picture of Illuminati, because as I mentioned earlier, Blair at this point of time was a very well-respected community member. Yes, there had been murmurs of drama here and there, but it had been quashed by the community of people that really did believe everything that Blair told them, because she had a lot of good videos. She had the facts out there in her videos about a lot of other people out there. But the real fact because as I mentioned earlier, is that the true facts about Blair were definitely not out there. But then just like before, things only got worse when another former member of Sad Milk came out called Wonderstruck, where they made a Twitter thread about Blair stating, "Forgive me for this being scattered, emotions and all, as Sad Milk Fred. After being threatened with a breach for speaking out, I can confirm that the behavior Blair exhibits is entirely accurate here. I'm aware of the bridges that I burned, and I remain where I am. After Sad Milk split, it was a constant negative echo chamber that I took part in. Regardless, I used to edit for Sad Milk. Blair made no effort to take direction. She made everything about herself. Sad Milk at the time was the nearest thing to family I had, which sounds pathetic, but the content creator space is a very isolating one. The amount of hours I would spend online making drafts, editor tutorials for new hires, staying up, trying to get some editing in if editors were short-handed. I missed Christmas with my brother and father, fixing the mistake of the editor she hired, and I didn't even get a thank you, and it took me more than half a month to even get paid. Meanwhile, she delays payments to editors so she can purchase expensive clothes, visit BMW dealerships, and spend hundreds on food a day. While I do hold my beliefs towards certain matters, every month or so, there was a new villain of the week. And they would 1 second be a normal person in our lives, and then the next, suddenly, a hidden monster through, you guessed it, Blair's mouth. To say Sad Milk split on creative differences is a joke. It's a flat-out lie. Again, I'm aware of the bridges burned, but I can confirm that call took place where she screamed, cursed, and had a meltdown towards the clique and one topic at a time. It was a train wreck. It was supposed to be a fun group project, and we had become profitable, even to a small extent. Blair wanted creative lead, and we went from doing fun creative topics more in line with the Reddit we would all cover on our own channels to doing unenthusiastic view content. Blair took control and would not listen to how the video should be made, and so we got hyper loud music with like sprites paired with adult humor, which just made being a part of Sad Milk humiliating. My friends and I would watch Sad Milk and not laugh at the content, but at how awful it had become. Not due to anyone not being entertaining, but the lack of quality control. It was an editorial nightmare. It's why I stopped editing, because my really well-made content got roped into that by proxy. But Blair did not care. It was hers, and anyone who dared try to take the reins was a threat. After Click and One Topic and Salty left, I did almost all the heavy lifting, which is a thankless job for being small on the internet. I tried making schedules, I motivated Blair during another mental breakdown of hers to not delete the channel or the Discord, since I had actively read through the comments on both, and we had people who we mattered to. After months of behind the scenes insults towards the Click and One Topic, it became so negative and stale. Yeah, we all took part, but it was going on so long that it just became day after day. Blair would sit and check Click and One Topic Social Blade. She would make fake accounts to stalk them, but not just them, but a large portion of the commentary community. I personally see her try to get a lawyer to shut down anyone who says anything against her, and they ruined her day by saying, yeah, we can't really do anything. It's insane. Innocent people don't work so hard to try and silence others. We would get no work done, and I can't count how many times I pleaded and set up meetings for us just to do something, and nobody cared. I thought I had a friend who was hurting, and then I saw I had moved to villain. And like everyone else, I got shut out, trash talked, and the people I made efforts to be friends with wouldn't even acknowledge my existence. For me though, I'd already moved states under good faith that I was bettering my life. In the 30 days of living with Blair, it was a nightmare. I felt like I was trapped in her home always. She makes everyone her enemy. She called Wonder checking in to see if I'm okay, an invasion of her privacy. I sent her numerous messages trying to show I wanted to be her friend. She lives like an actual monster. Her home is a mess, like Horde is bad. Constant subtweets about me on Twitter and ignoring me. And if I dare say anything back, her Discord manager would happily remind me of my contract. This is disgusting. And then they attach a photo, which you can see, yes, there is a very extremely messy, dirty room there. So, my therapist, who she accuses me of stealing because she recommended, suggested that I leave that home at all costs, and I did. And the details I can't go into further due to legalities, but I ended up with no car, hardly any clothes and money to my name, and no home. Now, working full time again, I had no time for my channel. I had cried, bled, and worked through hell to get up. So I watched it die, since my main concern now was just putting food on my table. All because I made friends with one of the most vile people on the platform. Nobody wanted to talk to me, and I was too afraid to fully go public, as I didn't know the reach this massive creator had. I had everything IRL and online taken from me. She personally threw my YouTube play button in the trash. If that isn't symbolism, man, I don't know what is. I've spent the last 2 years of my life rebuilding from the ground up due to this woman. The only difference is I can come back from this as a strong person. She doesn't. She can't take that away from everyone she has screwed over. Blair, you can't hide anymore. Sooner or later, you were going to push everyone who cared about you away, and you'd realize the world isn't out to get you. But you made your fears a reality all on your own. I'm not afraid of you. You don't get that from me anymore. Never again. Now, when this tweet went out, naturally, it was a big shocker for the entire YouTube community. Because yes, we had seen the situation with Legal Eagle, we had seen the situation with The Click, but this situation with Wonderstruck was far more personal than just a little bit of problems with a group YouTube channel. I'm not trying to discredit The Click story here, but from what it seemed at this moment of time, at the time of these tweets going out, Wonderstruck's situation was far more personal, to the point of where someone had lost their home, had no car, hardly any clothes, and no money to their name. It was very clear that Blair's actions had been affecting people, not just in a social media space, but in real life as well. Which at the time was absolutely insane, considering Illuminati for so long had built up a good reputation, but within a few short days, it was all being brought down. And that collapse only continued when more and more threads about Blair started to come out. For example, example, another former member of Sad Milk, One Topic at a Time, made a thread of their personal negative experiences with Sad Milk. And whilst this thread was definitely not as heavy as the others, it basically did just confirm a large amount of the stories from the previous threads, such as Blair spreading rumours and stories, trying to damage their reputation, and ultimately just bringing a large amount of pain and stress onto Blair's former friends and co-workers. And it just kind of felt that at this point, every single content creator in the space had had a negative experience with Illuminati. Of course, that's not the case, but there was just so many Twitter threads coming out of people documenting how they had been negatively affected by Blair at least one point in their life, and yeah, this only continued. Because another former member of Sad Milk and former partner of Blair this time, Oz Media, came out with their experience with Blair, and it began stating how scared they are to do this, and there is so much fear that they can feel it in their guts. And I think just reading those words at the time really did shock people. What had Illuminati done to have such control and power and fear over her former friends? This wasn't a typical bit of YouTube drama where, oh, this person doesn't like this person. There had clearly been a large amount of trauma placed onto these individuals, and people wanted to know the truth. Now, Oz starts it off by confirming things, stating, yeah, it's a mess, but the Twitter threads by Wonder and Click and what they have stated about Sad Milk is the truth. The whole project was a mess from start to finish. I really wish I didn't need to do this, but with the flurry of DMs I've been getting, I don't have a choice but to speak out. Blair, I'm sorry, but you have hurt me. I need to speak out without being told by you, oh, I'm just the villain, I'm always in the wrong, or something along those lines. Words I have heard from you consistently. I want to be heard for once. I need to clear my mind and conscience after holding this in for 2 years. Forgive me, but it's what needs to be done. And yeah, it's time to get into probably the most damning thread of all, as this was a bit different. This wasn't just a co-worker or former friend of Blair. This was the ex-partner of Blair. These two individuals had lived together and had been in a relationship together, so I think it says quite a lot that even this individual is coming out and speaking their story. When looking at the whole of the project, it was mostly controlled and run by Blair. Her main worry was because of her, in her word, lack of personality. She felt as though her contribution to Sad Milk needed to be the managerial bureaucracy behind the scenes to justify her presence. This led to a defensive approach when anyone would attempt to assist the nitty-gritty behind the scenes, in brackets, despite her claiming that no one wanted to help her, one of the factors she claims to be the final nail in the coffin of Sad Milk. Blair was indeed the aggressor. She always had been. As an example of this behaviour, look at the Legal Eagle situation. Blair had the habit of starting fights, but will almost never ever publicly apologise if proven wrong. She will instead hide behind a private apology and, from my perspective, act as though this makes everything better. After all, she would express to me that admitting error would only make her look stupid and weak. This will be followed by her blocking people on Twitter, silencing detractors through YouTube channel bans, deleting comments, and putting her accounts on the down low to prevent interaction. For example, Sad Milk. She would blacklist former collaborators from being mentioned, but manually approve hate comments towards them, which in my opinion were specifically ones which instead praised her or the remaining members, including me. This is her MO. It had been for the 4 years I've known her. It actually perfectly ties into how we first met and began speaking in April of 2019. Sad Milk was very much like this. At the first sign of dissonance, her response was to have me confront One Topic and Click with this list of talking points in an attempt to show them how wrong they were, which I accepted. This brings me to, well, me. What is missing from both Click and Wonder's threads is the fact that I acted as Blair's frontrunner. Anything Blair needed to say went through me first. Essentially, I acted as a spokesperson. This was actually a common factor in our relationship. I would always act as a filler to keep her out of drama or from saying things which would be seen as offensive or kindle for a larger fire. I stopped doing this in January. This does not excuse me from protecting her for so long, but this is the truth. I could take the approach and say I was manipulated, which perhaps I was, but I still knew what I was doing. I always did, and it always hurt. It left a huge black mark on my spirit and my ability to feel comfortable in my own skin. I had moved to Colorado, got a house, and lived with her at the time. She was in my life every day, and I would hear these theories and villainous explanations directed at anyone who wronged her. It was hard to avoid, let alone not fall for them. I believed it was my responsibility to protect my friend from something that, in my view, was clearly hurting her. Something that I felt eating at her and making her daily life worse. Things which in hindsight could have been solved with a conversation, but she was unwilling. Instead, the conspiring, backstabbing, and rumor machine were put into full swing. I, much as Wonder and Salty, were forced by Blair to choose between her or Click and One Topic. Of course, I chose the person that I lived with. What was I gonna do? Move again? I mean, I could have. Once I chose my side, I was met with praise and adoration from her and her mod staff. At the time, it felt that I was making the right decision. Boy, I was wrong. I've lost so many friends, isolated myself, being at her side despite feeling like my connections to the world were being severed. I always acted as her talking piece, from yelling at One Topic to berating Click and others. I did in service of someone who at the time I believed every word of. I trusted Blair to hell and back and thought I was doing good. I have learned since then through both self-reflection and conversations with old friends just how much I was used. There of course is much more than I could ever hope to cram into this stupid Twitter thread that I know I'm going to get angry DMs and phone calls over. Blair, I need you to know that you hurt me more than you realize. I know you're scanning this and having your team read over it, maybe even looking at sending me a legal threat as you parade to do so. But I want you to apologize for once in your life and take accountability. Please, Blair. You would rather paint the world red than admit you have faults. And yes, that ending to that thread was very ominous for what was about to come. But this actually does bring us to the ending of all of the massive Twitter threads that were going around in early 2023 about experiences with Illuminati. And overall, Oz's statement, Wonderstruck's statement, the Click, One Topic statements, they all had damaged Blair's reputation. There were a large amount of allegations building up and people speaking out against her, and overall, Blair's reputation was completely destroyed. And I guess that does just bring us to one question of, well, how did Blair respond? So yes, the response of Illuminati, which came on the 28th of April 2023, just a week after her tweet that started everything. Blair tweeted, "To Legal Eagle, although I have apologized privately, I would like to do so now publicly. I'm sorry for making editing style claims that were inaccurate. I jumped the gun, thought hastily, and should have messaged you privately to hash things out. I am sorry." And then Blair attached some direct messages apologizing and Legal Eagle replying to her stating, "Thank you for the apology." Now at the time, a lot of people out there had a lot of criticism for this apology, stating that realistically it was not that much, it didn't really seem that she was that sorry. But at the end of the day, as someone that has covered multiple YouTuber apologies, I can say that an apology is the easiest thing to criticize, and I guess at the end of the day, at least she did put out a public apology saying sorry. Like, yes, there's not really much emotion in this considering the magnitude of her original claims, but at the end of the day, I guess it is good that she apologized. But as I said previously, no apology was going to prevent what was happening in this situation. Blair had kicked off the snowball effect, and that snowball had now become an avalanche. Things were just getting worse every single day for Blair at this point, and it was only going to continue. Because at this point of the timeline, the Legal Eagle situation was weirdly old news. After all of the threads that we just went through, not many people were really speaking about the Legal Eagle situation, and instead were now looking at Blair as an actual supervillain that had potentially made people homeless, ruined their lives, traumatized individuals that she's worked with, and overall just being a horrible person. And that led to tweets from Neon Caffeine responding to this apology, stating, "That's cool and all, but are you going to address the numerous abuse allegations that previous employees and roommates and even your own ex have publicized?" And this pretty much was the sentiment surrounding Blair's apology of, okay, great, you've apologized, but at the end of the day, the thing you're apologizing for here, realistically in the grand scheme of things, is no longer a major thing. There are far more pressing issues for Blair to deal with. But interestingly enough, Blair actually did deal with that situation, because on the exact same day as apologizing to Legal Eagle on Twitter, she uploaded a YouTube video titled Illuminati Exposed. And yes, when this uploaded, I remember the immediate reaction of being shock and confusion of why is this influencer making an exposed video on themselves? Well, it's because what this video actually is well, addressing all the Illuminati exposed threads that we just previously went through and all of the speculation surrounding Blair at the current period of time. But this was particularly interesting considering right now, all of this drama surrounding Illuminati had been confined to Twitter, and really just in a bit of a niche micro-internet community that on the grand scale of things really wasn't doing much in terms of Blair's actual overall audience. You see, on Twitter, yes, you're going to have some of your audience there, but at the end of the day, Blair had over 1 million subscribers at this point, and only a little fraction of that audience were over on Twitter, and the majority of her audience did not know about the things happening on Twitter. So for Blair to expose all of her dirty laundry and exposés going around her to her audience of 1.7 million subscribers, I would say this probably is not a good move, because even if you're going to convince some people that you're in the right, you're now exposing this story to people who didn't even know about it, and you're just inadvertently going to at least lose a large section of people who fundamentally are going to disagree with what you were saying, whereas if you just kept this on Twitter, it probably wouldn't have gone this massive. But to be fair, hindsight is a wonderful thing, and I am looking back on this thing 2 years ahead of when it actually happened, and you know, maybe Blair would have had to eventually put out a YouTube video because other YouTubers would have covered it, but when you were seeing this in 2023, it definitely was very confusing that this niche stuff happening on Twitter had now been turned into a massive situation. Because as you can see, this video has over 1 million views. This story had officially gone mainstream because of Blair herself. And it's ironic because something you're going to notice throughout this entire story is all of Blair's ex-friends and employees coming out and stating that Blair very much is someone that can't admit she was wrong in any situation. She will always fight back, she will refuse to say sorry, and this is a perfect example of this. She could have easily put out a few tweets saying sorry for her actions and just reflecting on things, and maybe that wouldn't have been enough for everyone, but to do what she did in this video is crazy. Because as you can see, yes, the video absolutely did not go down well. And what we're now going to do is go through this video in a chronological order, and I'm going to attempt to not kind of jump forward in the chronological timeline too much. There are going to be moments of where we are going to have to refer to things later on down the timeline just to disprove a few very serious accusations here and there, because I don't want to leave it for like an hour without going back to it or potentially forgetting about it. There is a lot being said here, and yeah, we're going to go through all of it now. And the first thing that Blair addresses is immediately the legal eagle situation, and in fairness, she did give another apology.
Now, before we get into debunking many false statements that have been made about me, I want to start with an apology. I have apologized privately to Legal Eagle the day after this incident occurred, though I have not been publicizing that until right now. Maybe this is something I should have said sooner, but I needed the time to think through the events that have preceded. And for those unaware, a short story. My editors came to me about how parts of a Legal Eagle video looked similar to our videos. And then there were messages and an email from one of Legal Eagle's editors asking for more information about how we do certain effects. I looked at the compared images that were brought to me and I said, wow, that does look pretty similar, and I impulsively posted about it on Twitter. Truthfully, I should have looked into this more instead of just putting the information out there the second I had a gut reaction about it. I should have asked him what the emails were about, but I didn't, and I made a mistake, and plain and simple, I was wrong. So to Legal Eagle and team, I just want to reiterate that I messed up, and I'm sorry for any stress this may have caused you and of course to your team. I know I apologized privately and removed the tweets with that apology, and I'm now publicly sharing that information with all of you. And I want to extend that apology to my audience and to listeners who are disappointed in me for this, because I'm also disappointed in myself. It was a quick-drawn decision and it wasn't thought out. I promise to do better.
Now, without the context of any of the things we've gone through today, I would actually say that this is a bit of a respectable apology to bring this onto your YouTube channel when this was only happening on your Twitter page. I say that's pretty respectable. If you remove all of the context from this story and what's to come in this video, I could see this as respectable, and if there wasn't all the drama going on separate to the legal situation, maybe this would have been that, and it would have all been great, and Illuminati would continue to have been a successful YouTuber. But no, that's not going to happen. And the thing is, with Blair's apology here, a lot of people at the time, and still to this day, really didn't see it as authentic. People just mainly believed that Blair was making this apology because she was called out, because she was exposed, and because people went against her. The fact of the matter is this story was a complete load of bollocks, but at the end of the day, if it went Blair's way, I highly doubt that she would have actually apologized or retracted this story in the future. In my personal opinion, as I've already said, I think she was trying to take out her competition and make others look bad so she would look better, and she got called out, and that's why she's now apologizing. And also, I fundamentally believe with all the things that she's going to get into in the later parts of this video, I think this apology is here to kind of act as a cushion to go into all of the things that she's about to go into, because yeah, from this moment on, it's basically just false accusation after false accusation and lies upon lies upon lies.
Let's start with the first accusation and go from there. After Legal Eagle responded in his tweets, there was another tweet that arose in tandem to this situation. And that tweet was made by another YouTuber called HBomberGuy. And this YouTuber is someone who also creates longer form content. As someone who creates this type of content and researches various topics, the main thing to keep in mind is the source material used. Things like articles, interviews, videos, documentaries, academic essays, and so on and so forth. As video essayists, this is a core concept to both Harris and myself. Before I get into the accusation itself, I want to address the topic of plagiarism. And that word has been tossed around a ton, and it's not something to be taken lightly. And I just want to take a minute to define this word. On screen are definitions for the word plagiarism as defined by Merriam-Webster, Dictionary.com, and the University of Oxford. I'm showing multiple sources defining plagiarism, but the overall definition is going to boil down to this. Plagiarism is to take someone else's idea as their own or to not credit the source. With that definition being clearly identified, let's go ahead and take a look at what Harris brought to the Twitter table. Harris posted this video saying, and I quote, "Personally, at Illuminati, I would define plagiarism as something a bit more specific. For example, copying someone else's documentary directly into your script." End quote. However, in his own video, he shows where I'm audibly quoting a direct line from the documentary, and even visually you can see it on the screen with the quotation marks. Additionally, you can even see the dual ellipses on either end of that quote, indicating that more of that source was being cited. When you go to my sourcing page for this particular episode, you can also see that the documentary is listed as a source. It has been 3 years since I posted this episode, and I've been really grateful to be able to continually learn and grow with time. Since then, I have learned to be much more overt and obvious with citations, something that may not have been perfectly clear to me 3 years ago.
Now immediately, there was a lot of issues people had with what Blair was saying here. And the first one being Blair defending herself by stating that this plagiarism happened years ago. And okay, sure, this may have taken place a few years ago, but at the end of the day, this video is still publicly available on your YouTube channel, and you are still monetizing that video and making profit off that video. You're still making profit off somebody else's work, and that is still publicly available, and to this day most likely still making money for Blair. She didn't, actually give the money to the people that she plagiarized. She kept it for herself and has still got the video up on her channel as far as I know. You can say that you're sorry in all of these situations, but at the end of the day, if you're going to defend yourself like this, then in my opinion, you're just making excuses and you really actually do not feel sorry for anything that you've done here. But now let's get into the defense surrounding the quotations here. Because yeah, she is correct in there being some quotation marks in relation to the section about the FDA lawsuit from 1989. But there is a key bit of context missing here, and that is going to be a pattern throughout all of this video. Because the quote marks being showed only appear on the quote from the FDA lawsuit in 1989. But she's phrasing it in her defense like she's used quotation marks throughout every single section of the supposed alleged plagiarism, when she absolutely has not done that. she has only used quotation marks on one specific section, quoting one specific article. And when you put the clips side by side and compare them to each other, it very clearly shows that Blair was copying what the narrator says and not quoting him, and she only quoted one thing in the entire section, which of course would still be a form of plagiarism.
Professor Hugh Fudenberg.
Professor Fudenberg has long been controversial.
A man named Hugh Fudenberg, a former immunologist who has been long controversial.
In 1989, he was caught up in a bizarre lawsuit involving the Food and Drug Administration, which told him he had to stop injecting his autistic child patients with blood products.
In 1989, he was caught up in a bizarre lawsuit with the Food and Drug Administration, which told him he had to stop injecting his autistic patients with blood products.
So yes, there is a quotation mark there, but it's just hilarious because the one quote she's actually making here, yes, does come from the documentary, but that was the documentary themselves actually quoting a legal document. The thing Blair is quoting isn't even her own quote, she's actually plagiarized a quote from a documentary of where they decided to quote something, and then she's just left out all of the other bits that she's copied in terms of what the narrator is saying. It's a bit confusing, but overall, Blair's defense here is just absolutely hilariously terrible. So yes, it was pretty obvious that some form of copying had happened here, whether that was Illuminati's doing, or whether it was one of her scriptwriters or researchers doing. Something weird had happened here. Now, do I personally believe that Blair had plagiarized in every single video ever? No, I do not, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of that actual video was not plagiarized and there were just some awkward moments here and there. But the issue is the thing that she accused Legal Eagle of was a complete and utter nothing burger, but in this case, there is a valid criticism to have here, and it just makes Blair look like a complete hypocrite, and the fact that she has even defended herself here just makes herself look even worse. And this just takes us back to Oz's tweet earlier of where he is appearing to beg Blair to finally take some accountability. Because in the grand scheme of things, this whole section to do with Legal Eagle is now massively insignificant in comparison to the rest of this story, but despite that, she is still not willing to take any responsibility, she is still being incredibly disingenuous, and she is not showing any signs of actually being sorry for what she has done and being sorry for being a hypocrite, which just shows that in the future we can't trust her in any way, shape or form, and the community saw this and thought to themselves, well yeah, what do you expect us to believe in any other serious scenario? And of course, that sets the stage considering we still have another 40 minutes to get through. And yeah, that takes us to when Blair starts to actually speak about the sad milk situation. And she starts off that section by talking about how and why she took charge of that channel.
Before I address any one person individually, I want to kind of cover everything in a general and broader scope regarding Sad Milk. Sad Milk was a collaboration channel started by 6 friends in 2020. It was kind of essentially group Reddit readings and just looking at cringe things online and reacting to it. It was no big deal on the surface. This channel and this project was just meant to be something goofy, easy, and kind of cringy, but a shared channel that we could all get a kick out of. It was just supposed to be a bunch of friends hanging out, reacting to funny images, and just having a good time together. I mean, the channel name was literally called Sad Milk, so it wasn't really something that anyone was taking too seriously. Discussing Sad Milk now in current day is always a little bit bittersweet for me. It was a fun project among friends that turned sour. The issues I'm about to address cost me some of my closest friends at that time. When the Sad Milk channel was formed, I initially took the lead and I made the channel, I made the Discord, I got my mods from my server to help run the new Discord. I hired and managed video editors to help us produce more content. I was the one who was sourcing the topics and files for each video, and I was the one who had set the schedules for recording too. The reality of the situation was this: with creators in different time zones, it was logistically pretty hard to get everyone together at one place in one time. We tried to do it organically multiple times, but unfortunately someone would always end up missing from the recordings. There's a lot of work behind the scenes that goes into a YouTube channel, and I bore the brunt of it for this project. And it wasn't something that I was doing to have total control, as some members have suggested. I managed the schedules and the editors because it was just something that needed to be done. People weren't stepping up to the plate, and I did, and I ultimately bit off more than I could chew. It was a lot of work, if we're being honest, and I was beginning to burn out pretty quickly. Had I known how I would have been treated through this channel and afterwards, I never would have joined this project.
Now, I've worked with plenty of other content creators in the past, and I understand that it can be a bit of a stressful job, and I can get what Blair is saying here. But I think what she's really trying to do here is kind of justify her anger and treatment of her former employees and former co-workers in the past by stating, oh, I was stressed out because I had to take control of the business as nobody else was doing that. But as I said before, I've also worked with YouTubers in group settings, I've also worked with people on collaborations, and I've met YouTubers and just experienced them in a regular setting when cameras are off. And I can tell you, a lot of YouTubers like to take charge and like to be the leader so they can justify them acting like a bellend. They think that because they're in charge of everything, that means that they can just justify being to everyone, and I think that's what Blair is trying to do here. When the reality is that isn't a justification for actions, it's just you being a bellend and not willing to take any responsibility yet again. But after this, Blair only continues when she starts to speak about everybody's responsibilities at the company. And of course, Blair is going to make it out to sound like she was the number one in charge doing absolutely everything.
It was a lot of work, if we're being honest, and I was beginning to burn out pretty quickly. Had I known how I would have been treated through this channel and afterwards, I never would have joined this project. Essentially, everyone in the group had two main responsibilities for Sad Milk. The first was that you had to show up to the scheduled recording, and the second was you had to pay your portion of the editor's fees as they arise. After the editors were paid, any earnings that were left in the channel were split into 6 equal pieces for each person. Since this was a project among friends, we all initially agreed to just split the earnings 6 ways, even though I was taking on some extra responsibilities. When it was time to pay the editors, I wasn't answered or told that they would just get it to me later. I had to do this at various points with a vast majority of the members of the group. They would eventually get around to reimbursing me only after I expressed in group meetings how I was upset that I have to do everything, and I also got stuck footing the bill too. What quickly transpired was that members either couldn't or wouldn't reimburse me for the editors. For clarity's sake, I do want to disclose that we as a group later revised our agreement after paying all editors and creative freelancers that 5% of remaining earnings would go directly to me for the administrative work that I was doing. After that, the remaining earnings would then be split amongst the group evenly. Ultimately, the channel made very little, and it actually cost a lot more than we earned a majority of the time.
Now again, as I said earlier, I can kind of understand what Blair is speaking about here, and I think anybody in any business can understand it. People being delayed their payments will be a very stressful thing. Working in business with friends can be a very messy and stressful thing, and honestly, I would not recommend it. But again,
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I can't help but hear this and think that Blair is only saying this so she can justify the things that she is being accused of. Mistreating people, being horrible to people, being nasty to people. It just kind of sounds like Blair is saying, oh, I was really stressed out, so therefore I treated everybody terribly. But also, there is another problem here. Because Blair word for word states in that previous clip that there was a restructure plan made to prevent these issues from happening in the future. So I really don't understand why any of this is really being brought up, because sure, you could have been stressed, but at the end of the day, that doesn't justify some of your actions that you've been accused of. but also, with there being a restructure plan in place, it clearly indicates that you all collectively got together as a group, worked out the problems, and tried to make sure that that would not happen in the future. Hence, there was a plan put in place. But then let's take a look at the DMs that Blair was showing us, where the click clearly states that the only reason money had not been sent out is due to his credit limit being reached, and then a few days later he apologized, explaining the issue with the bank and that the money had been sent. So what this now seems like to me, after reading the actual context of those DMs, is a very short-term issue has been kind of expanded and kind of exaggerated into a much larger issue than it ever actually was, and this is a complete deliberate tactic to deflect from actual allegations against her and just be like, again, yeah, I was really stressed out, I was the leader and I had to deal with all these things, but the reality is it's very clear that the people she was working with were very understanding, they came to a lot of resolutions, and they worked out the problems in the business. Honestly, this does just sound like the realities of working with your friends. There are gonna be issues, it's gonna be messy, but from what I could see, they were, at the time, healthily actually going about things in terms of creating plans, apologizing, and actually eventually getting things sorted. So yeah, things could have been frustrating, but with what Blair is showing us and telling us here, none of this really seems intentionally malicious whatsoever. So I don't really think any of this is valid. And from what I've read in the comment section and the community sentiment surrounding it at the time of where this response came out, a lot of people out there just kind of believe that Blair was trying to build up a victim narrative. A victim narrative so she could get away with a lot of things that she may or may not have done. And another example of that comes in the next part of this video, where Blair actually does make an apology after making 3 minutes worth of excuses.
Something the Click brought up in his Twitter thread was that I was angry and yelled in a meeting, but what he didn't share was the context of that meeting. As I've previously stated, the scheduling and money issues had been an ongoing problem. In the meeting that he vaguely references on Twitter, this is what actually happened. I had become more and more frustrated about how I was doing all of the work, I was doing all of the maintenance, and then I was also having to financially foot the bill to the project. As I said, it was burning me out pretty quickly, and I was thinking about leaving the group. Oz Media suggested that he try to run the meeting and I not attend, and I agreed. But One Topic and Click were very insistent that I be there, even though I said I was not ready to talk and I needed more time. So when I entered the call, I tried to let everyone know that I was uncomfortable with having this conversation and I was not ready to have it. Again, I would like to point out that at this point in time, these were still my friends. These were people that I liked and cared about. Letting your friends know, hey, I'm not okay right now, I'm really stressed and hurt, while you all get to stream, I still have to pick up the pieces to keep this channel going, is a really difficult conversation to have. Before the meeting started, I was told that if I didn't show up, that they would not have the conversation with me and everything would just stagnate. So I tried to put the channel and my friends' needs above my own. Reluctantly, I joined the conversation, and as I was speaking, One Topic talked over me, and out of frustration of this happening yet again, I raised my voice and said, "Can you shut up and let me talk for once?" And he left the call, and that's the last time I ever spoke with him. Looking back at it now, I should not have spoken to my friend like that. I felt that I wasn't given time to process and think things through, and in process of, emotion vomit came out. One Topic, I would like to apologize for that, this time publicly. Clearly, this was a situation that affected all of us very deeply and personally, and this was an exciting idea, but one that never really took off the way I think we thought it could. To all of the members of Sad Milk, I just want to say that I'm very sorry that I caused you stress throughout this project.
Can we get a big load of congratulations in the comment section? Because yes, Blair has finally made somewhat of an apology after making excuses for 3 minutes straight. Yeah, a real apology would not be you trying to justify the things that you're about to apologize for. And this just kind of proves a lot of the things said about Blair in all of the Twitter threads that we went through previously. Things where Blair is unable to take any responsibility, she's never sorry in any scenario, and she can never be wrong in any scenario. There always has to be a mountain of guilt-tripping, victimization, and excuses before she makes the most half-assed apology possible. We're about 13 minutes into this video, video at this point, and all it has been is deflections, justifications, manipulation, and mistruths. It's obviously not a good start, and you can kind of work out why this video went down so terribly. But another thing to point out in this video is Blair keeps on making it out like she would constantly take the lead because nobody was willing to get involved and help with any of the workload. But what you're going to discover as we go further through this video is that could not be further from the truth. I'm not going to jump ahead in the timeline right now, but there's going to be plenty amounts of evidence to show that so many of Blair's friends tried to help. They tried to do so much work, and they did do a lot of work, and Blair is just blatantly lying about this. But also from Blair's own admissions, she speaks about how they created plans to stop problems from happening in the future. They got together and resolved issues, and to me, that's an indication that there was a group collective going on here, but Blair is kind of trying to change history to suit her narrative. But then we move into the next section of where Blair starts to actually speak about the clique and some of the statements that the clique made. In particular, the allegation the clique made that Blair would go around spreading certain pieces of rumors or information out there about the clique, and Blair was not having it.
I want to take a couple minutes to bring up the clique and the many claims that he made on Twitter recently. The clique brings up how, as he puts it, a very convenient series of videos resurfaced with him saying some not so savory things after he left Sad Milk. His old videos, as he puts it, aged like milk. They did. I'm not going to dive into it further. The information's out there if you so choose to look. And as Click stated, those videos are 11 to 14 years old. And to be perfectly clear here, those videos are not any of the reasons as to why we split ways in Sad Milk, as Click tries to insinuate. Even back in 2020, I had stated that those videos had nothing to do with the ending of Sad Milk. I was actually unaware of those videos at the time of our friendship, but had I been aware of them, that friendship would have likely ended sooner. Unfortunately, when those videos surfaced, it wasn't really all that shocking to me, as Oz Media and I had actually talked about how Click had been using the R slur while we played games together. I thought, or I wanted to assume, that I had misheard, but Oz said that he was uncomfortable with it and said something, but the language continued. Click, you are right. Those videos in question are old, and at this point, they're kind of irrelevant. People can learn and people can change. That being said, at the time in 2020, Click was still using horrifying language and slurs that have long been deemed unacceptable.
Now, firstly, what I should just say here is that what Blair is speaking about here, of course, is just an allegation, but I guess at the same time, so was what the Click said originally in his thread. But yes, from what Blair was saying there, it's very obvious that she was not going to back down when it came to the Click, and as you go further and further into this video, more and more comes out. So I should just say, take everything in basically the entirety, but in mainly the next part of this video, with a large jar or bucket of salt, because yes, there are going to be a large amount of serious allegations now made, and again, just drink up that salt. Because yes, after this, Blair starts to randomly suggest that the Click was actually allowing predators to thrive in his Discord and get away with horrible actions. And I know before I said that I'm going to try and remain chronological here, but of course with what we're about to get into, I'm going to have to jump ahead in the timeline because I do not want to leave these things open for like an hour until we get into the Click's eventual response. So yes, well, let's just get into what Blair had to say.
I'd now like to address the Click's claims that I had any involvement in trying to gain control of his Discord server by, as he says, tossing around accusations at staff. Because unfortunately, there were some truly sinister things occurring in the Click's Discord that were brought to my attention. For this next section, I would like to provide a trigger warning. There will be mentions of explicit language, mentions of graphic imagery, and inappropriate behavior around minors. Before I go any further into this, I want to mention that there's going to be resources in my description box regarding what I'm about to discuss now. I do think it's relevant to bring up that in 2019, the Click's channel was terminated by YouTube for sexual content. At the time, a few YouTubers, including myself and Oz Media, band together to help reinstate Click's channel. Oz spoke to his MCN representative, and I spoke with YouTube directly. This is something that I now look back on with so much regret. Had I known at the time what was going on behind the scenes, I never would have participated in helping Click with his channel. Allow me to explain the situation a little bit. The Click and I had shared Discord moderators around the time of Sad Milk being created. Due to the Click's inaction, our shared moderators had brought a situation in his server to my attention. A situation involving in Click's Discord, there was a 19-year-old bragging about a 12-year-old that he was claiming to be involved with. A moderator reached out to get more information on this situation. This 19-year-old then reiterates, and I am directly quoting this here, "I talked with my therapist about it, even too, and he told me as long as I don't touch her, it's okay." Click and his team did not pursue any immediate action to ban, restrict, or report this individual.
Now, the word immediate is very important here, because typically the word immediate means you do something right now, at once, instantly. But the problem is with this word of immediate or immediately doing something is the issue of time zones. Now, I'm going to do what I said that I wouldn't do and go ahead in the timeline here due to the serious nature of what is being accused by Blair and show this tweet from the Click that he put out after this video came out, where he states the only reason that he did not ban this individual himself was because it took place at 3 a.m. in his time zone. Because the event that took place that's being described by Blair was involving an American, and the Click lives in Europe. Now, Blair, I don't know if I need to say it in a really slow way so you understand my words, but America is in a different time zone to Europe. Sorry if that was really condescending. I don't know why I'm being a dick, but yeah, basically, the Click was asleep. There was no way that he could find out about this thing, and of course, the person was very, very quickly removed from his Discord by his mods that were actually awake in that time zone. But to be fair, he also did admit that yes, some of his mods did not act in a timely, instantaneous manner, and they are no longer on the team. So realistically, there is not a problem here. It was immediately resolved, and Blair is once again turning this very insignificant short-term event into like this massive thing, which definitely did not happen in terms of like she's trying to make it out like he's harboring all these criminals in the server and it's actually this big secret thing she's exposing, when the reality is a very, very bad thing happened. It was one time, and she's trying to make it look like somehow that's the Click's fault. Now, to be fair, she also does mention that other people in the server were sending explicit content throughout the server, and again, because of the serious nature of that allegation, I am going to have to jump ahead in the timeline. Because the Click also addressed this by stating that he personally removed this person from his server when he found out about this, and also he goes on to speak about this further in another response video where he clears things up even more. And all in all, everything the Click has used to defend himself here completely contradicts Blair's words, and it's very obvious that Blair was just being incredibly disingenuous, and from this moment on, I think a lot of people had gone from angry to just outright disgusted with what Blair was doing in this entire situation, of where she was clearly desperately trying to slander everybody that was around her. And that obviously sets a horrible precedent considering we've still got around 25 minutes of video to go through. Now after this, Blair just continues to try and make the Click look as bad as she possibly can, and to be honest with you, I don't really feel the need to go through most of the points that she continues to make here, because realistically, most of them are insignificant and most of them are going to be debunked by the Click later on. So with that, we'll move on to the next individual that she starts to address in this whole situation, and that is Wonderstruck.
Let's start with Wonder's accusation of wage theft. That's a big one, and it's important. I talk often about how paying your people is important, so I know how ironic it must look to have that accusation thrown back at me. To begin, let me explain Wonder's employment history with me. During Sad Milk, all of us were contractors to that channel. We were paid as contractors so we could handle taxes in our respective countries on our own, as not all members were American citizens. As many of you are aware, video editing is largely considered gig work. And in the industry, most folks are contractors and work on a variety of projects for different clients at the same time. During December 2020, like all of the members of Sad Milk, Wonder was considered a contractor. On December 24th, 2020 at 5:39 a.m., I received a message from Wonder letting me know that he took a shot at reworking a video that had already been edited by a different contractor. I want to clarify. I did not ask him to do this. This was something he did of his own accord. I responded to him, letting him know that his edits would go live at 1 p.m. on December 24th, 2020. I don't want to claim to know what goes on in Wonder's personal life, but claiming that he missed Christmas with his brother and father. I just don't know how that's possible when the video was finalized early morning on Christmas Eve. And Wonder, I do want to thank you again, as I previously had verbally done so, for editing that video. It was great to have a video go live the day before Christmas.
Now, in fairness to Blair, once again, if there was no context here whatsoever and we were just taking Blair completely at her word, then yeah, I think she would have a bit of a valid point here. But the problem is, well, I'm not going to take Blair at her word, and at the time and to this day, nobody is going to take Blair at her word. Because yes, there was multiple problems here. One of the problems being that in the original tweet Wonderstruck made about this Christmas claim, he doesn't actually say that Blair directly asked him to make this. It more just seems that he was saying that he was trying his best to help out and do as much as he could to support the workload in the business that he was very much a part of, and he was just frustrated that he didn't get a thank you for his hard work over the Christmas period. And to be fair, I think anybody is really allowed to be annoyed at that type of thing. I think we've all worked for a boss where we've got frustrated with them. I'm sure Jacket has got frustrated with me at times. It's just something that happens in business, and that can be perfectly fine as long as you don't use that to then justify acting horribly to other individuals. But another interesting thing about this tweet from Wonderstruck and this whole situation in general is it clearly shows that Wonderstruck was doing a lot behind the scenes to help with the workload, which actually contradicts something Blair said previously of she was just so stressed out because pretty much nobody wanted to do anything and it was only her just doing everything.
People weren't stepping up to the plate, and I did, and I ultimately bit off more than I could chew.
When we've got direct proof from Wonderstruck here that that absolutely is not the case. So based on all that stress that Blair was complaining about, I can fully understand why Wonderstruck would do this. He was trying to help out somebody who timelessly again and again said how stressed out they were. He just wanted to help out his friend and business partner, and that makes a lot of sense, but given the fact that he did a large amount of work and missed a big part of his Christmas holidays and didn't get a thank you, I think he has the full right to be frustrated. But also, I just want to jump ahead in the timeline again and show the fact that Wonderstruck actually came out with his own video and responded to this point with additional context. And yeah, to be honest with you, I'm just going to throw out my rule of keeping this chronological because it's just not happening. So yeah, here is Wonderstruck disproving and going against what Blair had to say.
As for missing Christmas, you raise a very good point, and without context, I can understand where your confusion would arise, so hopefully I can clear this up for you. I'd like to paint a picture here if you allow me to do so. December is one of the most important months as a creator. For those of you who don't know, there are better or worse months to post to YouTube due to when advertisers are most willing to pay, and most advertisers are wanting to put their highest performing ads on videos during the holiday months such as Christmas. This equals a higher CPM, which for those of you who are in the creator space, it will all just kind of water down to this. Higher paying ads plus more videos equals more push equals more money in your pocket. It's a lot of boring stuff. Puts food on the table, pays your bills. That's all you need to know. At this time, I was a full creator. I didn't make crazy amounts of money, but I made enough to live on my own terms. During December, I was churning out content from my own channel. I needed it as a small growing channel and as someone who needed to pay his bills. However, our editors were short in the month of December, so what Blair fails to mention in her video, I will clarify. December 21st, I just completed a sad milk video that took me 16 hours give or take to make. I had pulled an all-nighter to do so, as we had discussed trying to have a stronger pull for the holiday months. A few days prior, I had just pulled yet another all-nighter to get a video out for the 19th on my own personal channel. We had an editor who had been tasked to complete a sad milk vlog that was intended to go up December 24th. Blair had hired this editor. She never once, as far as my knowledge, checked in on this editor to see his progress with said video. Where I grew worried is that as far as I knew, I had never seen this editor do any work for sad milk, and we were really coming up on the deadline of the 24th. On December 23rd, after starting another project and working through the entire day putting a dent into my own personal edit, I got into bed only to find that Oz had received the video from the editor. I took a look at the video, asked an unbiased source their opinion, and we all agreed that the video had major issues for a supposed finished product. These issues included scuffed audio, poor audio leveling, unnecessary edits that made relatively no relation to the edit itself, followed by long periods of dead air for an increased watch time push. I do not mean this as an insult. Resembled a home movie gone bad rather than a fleshed out project for a channel that had almost 200,000 subscribers. I knew this was a severe problem for two reasons. First, the deadline for the upload was the following morning. Second, this video was expensive and intended since November to be a Christmas Eve video. The video in reference reference was a Sad Milk gingerbread house building competition where we all flew out to Colorado. Blair purchased a large amount of items for said video, such as microphones, gingerbread houses, and Santa hats, all that material you need to make a gingerbread house. I'd like to add that Blair intended to use these expenses as a tax write-off, so it wasn't a total loss. We were all contracted for an entertainment company. In order for this to be a tax write-off, we would need to produce a video to prove as such. So now we have to think of the perception of Sad Milk, a project that represented all of our names. This puts us in a position with very limited options. We either let down the audience and post a very scuffed video that would exhibit a lack of care for the content we were making, which was not ideal given we had just lost half our members. We delay the video, which ties in with the first issue as our Christmas Eve video, which would either get out the 26th or the 27th at the earliest due to our available editors. Or we scrap the video, which leaves Blair out of money regardless, but now we have also wasted an entire trip visiting another state, and there are a bunch of expenses that can't qualify as a tax write-off. So I got out of bed after working all day, and I took my best shot at reworking a video in a style I was not familiar with. I was up roughly until 5 a.m. working on that video, and I waited to make sure it was good to upload and that we had the okay. I did this to avoid those negative outcomes I just listed. My sleep schedule was beyond screwed, so by the time I went to bed later that night, I slept due to pure exhaustion until well into the early afternoon of Christmas Day. To add to this, my family does not see each other very often, so for us to be in one room is a very rare thing. I had not seen my brother in almost a year, and I know Christmas is important to my father. Since we can't all spend an entire day together as we all have our own various lives, we plan to spend the morning of Christmas together. Obviously, it did not pan out that way. I'd like to add that no, Blair did not directly ask me to make this rework. However, Blair had made it clear in the last few months, especially when Click and OT left, that she felt she had no help with the channel, that she felt the responsibility fell onto her. This was me helping her.
So yes, ladies and gentlemen, I understand that that was a very long clip, but it's clear what was going on here. Wonderstruck fully acknowledged that Blair had a large workload and he wanted to take some of that off her, whilst making sure that the deadline also was reached. And as he said, he was never made to make this, but the whole thing is surrounding the fact that he was not thanked for his hard work. But the weird thing is here is I don't really think that any of this part is that significant. Okay, she didn't say thank you, yeah, it's a bit of a dick thing to do, but at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things with everything Illuminati has done, it's not really the worst thing, but still, she couldn't just say sorry. She had to be disingenuous, she had to fight against everything, and she couldn't just admit that maybe, just maybe, she should have said thank you. Instead, she tried to make Wonderstruck look like some disingenuous supervillain, and in the process, actually disproved her points surrounding that nobody was helping her out on the team, when clearly Wonderstruck was absolutely helping out with the workload. But now, moving on from that, we get into Blair's points surrounding the issue of payments.
As for his claim that he didn't get paid for his work for more than half a month, I would like to let everyone know that Sad Milk's payroll was on a bi-weekly schedule. That simply means that there is a payment every 2 weeks, which is essentially half of a month. This is something that I have continued within my own channel to this day. Both salaried and contracted employees are paid every 2 weeks, and to further add to that, most companies, at least in the US, pay on a bi-weekly schedule, so this is not anything unusual or uncommon.
So yes, there's obviously a lot of issues going on here, and I do need to apologize again, because yes, we are going to jump ahead in the timeline, because this is an issue that requires a large amount of screenshots, and Wonderstruck in the future actually did provide those screenshots, where he pretty much just fundamentally debunks absolutely everything that Blair was saying there, which again is just this trend continuing of every single point Blair makes, it just seems to magically get debunked with actual evidence and screenshots. Isn't that really interesting? It's almost like Blair's response is a load of bollocks.
I'd like to now focus on my pay. I said I was not paid until half a month after. This, I will admit, was anecdotal mostly. Blair said I was paid on a bi-weekly Sad Milk basis. At this time, Sad Milk was making money, just not a whole lot of it after editorial expenses. So typically I could see a check for $80 to $140 every month. As for editing, I had negotiated $500 per edit as Oz helped me realize my worth as an editor, and as for compensation for me not being a full-time editor. I'd like to add that in part of what I agreed for edits, I would do additional sprite movement, motion, and scene creation. This was painstaking to do, but this was also a quality result I would bring to the table of this channel while also working on my own channel. The editor we hired to the vlog, to my knowledge, was to be paid $200 for their edit. However, since I reworked the video last minute, I was to be compensated with $100, which I believe was fair pay. So I'd like for us to view the following bank statements, two in particular, one on January 29th, 2021 for $125 and another on February 29th, 2021 for $600. Now, I tried to dig deeper, but this just says a transaction from a bank occurred. I'd like to state that at first, I believed I was receiving sad milk payments via PayPal, so I tried to find an old email. Since I was making a fair amount of money, I would usually just let money stack into my PayPal and I would take it all out at once. And you can see right here that this is what a statement like that would look like in my bank account. At this time, I worked full-time, so my only income was from Google AdSense, Twitch, and sad milk. While it has been a long time, if I remember correctly, these payments would numerically and chronologically line up with sad milk and editor payments. It is the only possible source of this income that makes sense, which then shows me for the month of January, I actually only received one sad milk payment if that's the case. And it also distinctly shows that I was in fact paid separately as both sad milk talent and an editorial talent. I'd like to note that these payments are over the course of 1 to 2 months, not a month and a half. At the beginning of January, you can see I was paid $100 from this income source. That would make sense given half of the $200 video would, yes, be $100. However, if you look at the month of December, I did not receive one payment from sad milk. So I would assume unless sad milk just did very poorly that month and we made absolutely zero income, as I did not manage these channels' finances, this payment would be the sad milk payment for December. And if it was for fixing the video, why was I clearly paid the $600 here followed by the prior regular sad milk bank statement, $500 being for the original video I did and $100 being for the video I corrected? I had someone else take a look at the calendar, and if these payments were bi-weekly and I had a pay period beginning on the 1st, my pay period should have seen payments starting from the 1st, followed by the 15th, the 29th, which is correct, but we were missing a pay period, the 12th, then the 26th, but I was paid on the 19th. You can argue that sad milk was performing bad financially, which resulted in delayed or no payments by this time, as we had not uploaded since December and views did in fact dwindle. But that begs the question, if the payment of $600 is an editor payment, which I'd argue is because sad milk itself and its contractors never saw an amount that large in its history, why am I being paid for it not half a month late, but almost 2 months late? My only other theory is that these payments were in a source such as PayPal, where I could allow the funds to store up then deposit. However, it would still be delayed and show I was paid separately as an editor and contracted talent for sad.
So yes, it is very clear based on all of the evidence that was provided in that clip that late payments were made. But the problem is, again, is this really isn't that big of a deal. I understand it can be frustrating, but at the end of the day, yes, bank issues can happen. This has happened before in this whole thing of where they click apologized because he couldn't send out a payment. But the difference is there, the click actually said sorry. Blair instead made up a load of disingenuous arguments to try and paint out Wonderstruck to look like a villain. And I think it is just further displaying everything that was said about her during the whole threads, that she really, in every single scenario, is not willing to take an ounce of responsibility. And it just felt with the viewers watching this and with me watching this at the time that every single section we get through in this video, and as we go further into it, it was just becoming lie after lie after lie. And you just start to wonder, how did you think you were going to get away with this? This whole issue with Wonderstruck probably couldn't have been resolved with a sorry, but it absolutely could have started there. But instead, Blair just went to war using the most disingenuous arguments possible. And that only continues when Blair started to speak about the living situation.
Wonder and I were still friends throughout the end of Sad Milk in 2020 as well as into 2021. During this time, he would often tell both Oz Media and myself how living in Austin, Texas was a nightmare for him. He would often complain about his roommates being terrible people, his friends being mostly terrible people and unmotivated to do well in life, and how his car was always breaking down and how his channel was not going in the direction he wanted. And then he talked about that last bit of family that he had moving away, and he was essentially alone. I won't speak on behalf of Oz, but I know I was moved by Wonder's stories. Without going into personal details, I was pretty horrified by what he had explained happened in his past. I was saddened by how he constantly talked about how bad his life was and how he felt like a failure. He said he felt alone, depressed, and uncertain of the future. And at that point, I knew I wanted to help him in whatever way I could. At the end of 2020, I paid for his tickets to visit Oz and me in Colorado. During this trip, we discussed the possibility of Wonder moving out to Colorado due to his discontent with his life in Texas. Oz Media and I had just moved into his newly purchased home in April 2021, and he decided to welcome Wonder into his house. Unless Oz Media was doing so without my understanding, Wonder was not charged any rent, utilities, or internet for sharing our living space.
Now, we have an issue here. In fact, we have two issues here. Issue number one being that once again Blair is saying something that is incredibly disingenuous and removes a lot of context. And issue number two being that once again I am going to have to jump ahead in this chronological timeline in order to prove that Blair is removing a large amount of context. Because Wonderstruck in his future video explains why he did not make any rental payments, and he was perplexed that Blair did not mention the reasons. Because yes, they had a pre-agreement to do with everything with their living situation. No one had a problem with him living there rent-free for a short period of time, and if anything, the uncomfortable party there was Wonderstruck.
We had actually discussed a payment plan for rent. What Blair leaves out, and what I find very perplexing as to why she left out in her video, is that the reason I didn't pay rent was because I was going to become Blair's tenant. Not once does she mention throughout this video that when I first had the discussion of moving to Colorado, it was because Blair wanted to get her hands into the real estate market and wanted to build a home, something she had discussed with other former Sad Milk members. It wasn't just me. I made a reasonable first tenant. I was someone she knew, and I obviously made income, so kind of put two and two together. You can say this is a good deed on the surface, and it most certainly appears that way. I'll get into how over time Blair would have controlled every aspect of my life via transportation, income, and housing. I sincerely do not understand why the conception of this home was never presented in the video. It leaves out a massive gap of context. The home I was told would be finished by August, and then I could stay the summer. And the last month before moving to Colorado, after finalizing my lease, I was informed that the home would be pushed back until December. It's made me highly uncomfortable, which you can see the dates in these private DMs between Oz and a friend of mine who will remain anonymous. I have always been a very independent person. I have never had someone else pay my rent once in my life, and I have been living on my own since I was 18. To try to paint me as a freeloader when you also leave out that I was originally only supposed to stay until August, you were supposed to be my landlord, and that I only stayed 30 days in Colorado feels like a contorted attack on who I am as a person. While I was in their home, if I didn't know how to help, I would oftentimes clean their home. I wanted to help Blair with her recording space as she felt stressed in her little office. I wanted to buy us plants to liven the place up. I tried at every possible turn to earn my keep. And when I felt alienated, I tried to actively find an apartment in Colorado Springs to give them both the space, as I felt horrible, seemingly never being able to help in any way at all. It was beyond unfair. I made every effort to not be a burden, as it is quite frankly one of my biggest fears in my entire life.
So yes, shockingly enough, in the story that we were given by Blair about the living situation with Wonderstruck, most of that was just a load of disingenuous information with context completely removed. And this is just a pattern she keeps on repeating, using minimal context to portray all the people that speak out against her as some form of crazed freeloader who did nothing but leech off her and her business for years. And there is a clear reason to why she's doing this. Most people obviously do not like freeloaders. You see someone freeloading off a friend and you think, that's really annoying, that's really frustrating, I don't like that person. So when you hear, this guy was living with her rent-free, he had the dream job, he had a car, he had everything, and now he's got the gall to come out and slander my favorite YouTuber? Yeah, I don't like this guy. Go Blair. That's what Blair was hoping was going to be the perception, but obviously, at this point of time, she had been proven to be a liar already multiple times, so naturally the audience at this moment of time did not believe it, but it was very clear what she was at least attempting to do here. It was an outright character assassination, and it was quite embarrassing that she was even willing to attempt this. And the thing is, with Wonderstruck in particular, this very much seems to be Blair's main argument. She really does want the audience to believe that Wonderstruck is almost just this freeloading bum that does absolutely nothing, when time and time again this gets completely and utterly disproved, but she just continues going with it.
The content for Wonder to edit was dependent on me being able to livestream. During this time, I unfortunately only had 2 streams for him to work on, which Wonder would have been able to produce about 4 videos from. Wonder did not meet the deadlines for either stream. Despite this, I kept him on payroll, I continued his pay even though no work had ever been completed. Although there was only a minuscule amount of work for Wonder to do, he still managed to act up within company spaces. He made inappropriate comments on forms that were visible to other employees, he didn't complete tasks that were assigned to him, and he failed to follow company protocol. I have a strict policy regarding formal disciplines, and within his short time of working with me, he had already met the criteria for termination.
So with what's being presented here, of course, it doesn't exactly present Wonderstruck in a great light. It once again makes him look like somebody who absolutely was taking advantage of the situation he was in and freeloading off his workplace. And again, this is all completely deliberate because without any context, it could easily lead to somebody saying, wow, why is this person who had it so great trying to expose my favorite YouTuber? And this is all so disgustingly deliberate. Illuminati knows that she was once a very trusted commentary YouTuber who was known for giving her opinions on real situations and providing real facts. People went to her to get her opinion, to get the facts and information. People believed everything that she would say as fact, and she took advantage of that trust with her audience to try and slander the good people that worked for her and were also friends with her. And the thing is sadly, even if it's just a very, very small amount of people, I'm sure that there are some people out there that do hold negative opinions of the other individuals involved in this situation aside from Blair, just based on what Blair has said about them. I imagine that there are people that have just watched Blair's video, come out of that, made their opinion, and never came back to this situation. It's the sad reality of things, but I'm sure it has happened because the average person doesn't have the time to go and watch every single commentary video out there about every single situation so far and what is happening in the social media space and what's developing and changing every single day. The average person has a job, they have hobbies and friends to see. They don't have time to keep up with everything in the Illuminati situation. So I think all of this is deliberate and calculated and just overall a complete and utter smear campaign. And I know that because time after time again, Blair's friends completely and utterly debunk everything that she says about them. And here's another example of that.
I'd assume you'd attribute me as someone with a very poor work ethic, and I honestly would not blame you. However, while Blair is being very anecdotal here, I'd like to provide receipts that prove the following. Proof that I was not kept on payroll and I was fired before my deadline even happened. These were not short clips. The comment that I made on a forum that was grounds for termination, Blair leaving out how long it took her to actually provide content to edit, Blair leaving out that I had asked for work and various other aspects, my deadline extension due to my computer editing.
At 5:30 a.m. on October 3rd, 2021, a concerned neighbor called 911 after a house fire had engulfed a home at the 2400 block of 15th Avenue Court in Greeley, Weld County, Colorado.
No, there's a house on fire.
Okay,
I think there's someone in there.
Okay, what's your phone number in case we get disconnected?
I don't know, man. The house is fire. Somebody's in there, I think.
Okay, I have this in, and just to confirm, is that going to be a house or an apartment?
If the house is on fire, man,
okay,
you need to get the firemen here.
They're coming as fast as they can, okay? What makes you think that someone's inside?
Because there's a dog barking, and there's a car in this place. Man, you got to get to the fire truck.
Okay.
Before we begin, we would like to express our sincere condolences to the family and friends of the victim. By the time first responders arrived on the scene, the blaze was completely out of control and a danger to anyone who got close. That meant officers were helpless to rescue anyone who might have been inside.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, I just don't see what This is Officer Flores, Great Police. Anybody in there? Is there anybody in there? We don't know. The dog's we've been trying to get him up for. Who lives there, sir? His name is Chris. There's somebody in there now.
Dispatch 492 to confirm we have fire on the way. House is fully engulfed and we don't know if everybody's out of the house.
The next-door neighbor feared the homeowner, 35-year-old Christopher Dickerson, was still inside when the fire started, and there appeared to be several clues to suggest he might have been right.
I think his car is still in the garage. Yeah.
Fire's gotta be here.
Yeah, bro. This is off the floor. Is there, please, anybody in there? Chris!
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah, I tried running on the other side, on the fucking window on the other side, but I don't think anybody heard. Yeah, bro.
Yeah, we don't know if anybody's inside yet.
This is off the floor. Is there police? Anybody in there?
Ah, dude, there's no way, there's no entrance in. We can't get in there.
That's Chris's dog barking in the backyard, but more alarmingly, Chris's blue Hyundai Elantra was still parked in the driveway. If Chris was inside the residence, then there was no way officers could have helped him. All they could do was wait for the fire to be put out before they started the search of the building's remains.
We couldn't. Like, we got here, it was fully. I mean, we think there's somebody in there. I don't really know how to help these guys at all.
When the fire was extinguished, everyone's worst fears came true. They found a body amongst the wreckage of the house, later confirmed to be Chris's body, leaving his family in turmoil. But the news didn't get any better after the Weld County coroner performed an autopsy and discovered that Chris was already deceased when the fire started. The coroner came to those conclusions because of several inconsistencies, such as the pattern of the burn marks, the lack of smoke in the victim's lungs, and more importantly, the multiple stab wounds to the victim's neck. Investigators, led by Detective Jerry Burrows, also noticed signs of a struggle, and it looked like someone had rummaged through Chris's belongings as an old engagement ring was missing. Detective Burrows officially opened a murder investigation, and the race was on to find out who was responsible. Investigators discovered that a neighbor had survived.
Can a dishonest burglar make a living? Goes down smooth. Time for happy hour.
Intermission.
Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Break it up. Break it up. Goes down smooth.
Frontal.
Time for happy hour.
Intermission.
Where's my drink? Where's my drink?
Break it up.
Frontal.
Break it up. Goes down smooth.
Frontal.
Guess that was life. Cool.
Are you here to help? My zeal to get back in business led to faulty reasoning.
Your pal here signed some papers he didn't read. And now Goldie Baronbottom is CEO of this joint.
Help me. Please get my meadery back, Outlander.
Frontal. AOE. AOE. Frontal. Spread. AOE. Frontal. AOE. Frontal. AOE. Frontal. AOE. Frontal. Revamp. AOE.
stills! They bypass the filters! It's running too hot! The mead will be substandard!
Frontal.
Yeah,
AoE.
but there'll be
Frontal.
more of it. More meat, more money.
AoE.
That's good business.
Ugh. River was my personal directive, my passion! She's ruining everything!
Spread. Frontal. AoE. 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 Frontal. AoE.
Only the strong.